Good evening, everyone, and Afreil Purim, Purim Sameach, Parshat Ki Tisa. I think this is very relevant because Purim is upon us. Just like we know that Haman wanted to destroy our bodies, and the Greeks wanted to destroy our souls. So it's very relevant that Ki Tisa is a parsha that begins by telling us when we take a census, we do it through the mechatzis shekel, through the half shekel coins. We don't count Jews. Hashem doesn't want us counted, but there is a way to come up with the sum. To do a census, we give a half shekel. And this is the custom before Purim. We give the half shekel because it's in the month of Adar. During the month of Adar, we collect the head tax so that all the korbanos, all the offerings throughout the year are collected during the month of Adar so that we can begin the new year in Nisan, the new financial or fiscal year for the offerings of the temple. And that everybody's portion will be included in the communal offering, and we are all atoned for through the communal offerings that are given throughout the year, which begins in Nisan, which is a few weeks away. So we'll start with the first verse. It says in chapter 30 of Exodus, verse 12, when you shall take the sum of the children of Israel, meaning when you take a census according to their numbers, let each one give to the Lord an atonement for his soul when they are counted. Then there will be no plague among them when they are counted. So the Kliyakar explains that every time that the word Nasiat Rosh is used in connection to accounting, something very extraordinary is taking place. The concept is that through the counting of the Jewish people of Israel, we are being elevated. We are being menusim biyeter se'et al kol umos. I'll skip to a certain verse that reminds me of what this is talking about. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 26, it's really 18, but 18 and 19. And the Lord has selected you this day to be his treasured people, as he spoke to you, so that you shall observe all his commandments and to make you supreme above all the nations that he made, so that you will have praise, a distinguished name and glory, and so that you will be holy people to the Lord your God as he spoke. So Hashem says, V'Hashem ahamircha hayom liyot lo am segula, to be an am segula, kasher diber lach, v'lishmor kol mitzvotav. U'letitcha elyon al kol hagoyim. God is going to place us supreme amongst all the goyim, amongst the nations. So the Kliyakar begins by telling us that whenever we're counted, we are made not exactly supreme. That's not the word he's using, but it sounds like it's menusim b'yeter se'et al kol ha'umos. There's something treasured and beloved and elevated by this counting. That when you count each person, what does it reflect? It reflects the idea there's an attribute, there's some kind of advantage, an attribute of being placed above. I'll tell you what the word in Hebrew, ki kol mispar mora al hamala hapratit, sheyesh l'kol ish v'ish. There's an advantage, there's a virtue by counting each and every person. And again, we're talking about through the coins, and eventually to come to a census. Because why? Because anything that is important is counted. If it's not important, it's not counted. And the Kliyakar explains, when you have hay or straw, it's not something that's very chashuv, it's not something that's important, so you don't really count it, you don't think of it in terms of its chashivut, in terms of its importance. But Israel is compared to wheat. So there's a medrash in the Yilkut Shimoni that discusses this very fact, that Israel is compared to wheat. And what is it about wheat? So I'll preface it by also letting you know there's an opinion about the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that it was the wheat plant that was the original fruit that was eaten, and it's called the tree of knowledge. Also, the idea that once a child is weaned from breastfeeding and he begins to eat wheat, so there's something that happens to his body. It's like knowledge is now entering his system. His brain is developing differently than it was once he discontinued the milk. And even the feces, what's in his diaper, is no longer considered pure, but it has a stench, and it's something you can no longer learn Torah around or pray around, and you must clean the child or remove him from the room, or you step out of the room. But there's a change that takes place with wheat in the stomach, and that's what we're going to discuss a little bit. So in Shir HaShirim, in Song of Songs, and I'm going to read the Art Scroll translation, as the earth's very center, this is Song of Songs, chapter 7, verse 3. As the earth's very center, your Sanhedrin site, is a crescent basin for ceaseless flowing teaching. So we're talking about the Har HaBayit, we're talking about the navel of the world. And there's a flowing teaching. Your national center is an indispensable heap of nourishing knowledge hedged about with roses. Bitnech arenus chitim, that your stomach is a pile of wheat, suga b'shoshanim, hedged about with roses. So this is a little bit cryptic and not so clearly understood what he's talking about. But the idea that wheat is mentioned here in your stomach is a positive thing, and there are piles, arumos. So he says that each pile of wheat is considered something important by itself, as we would know that a farmer who collects some type of product that's very important, he counts his piles. So it is important, as opposed to which we mentioned earlier about hay or straw. It's spread all over the place. It's not necessarily stacked into piles. And he would say, well, I have so much piles. So too with your stomach. Each and every Jewish stomach is very important. It's not just the heads. As our pasuk says, when you count the heads, and the Kli Yakar mentioned at the very beginning, whenever we talk about Nasias Rosh, the lifting of the head, so to speak, in respect to counting, something is going on. But he wants you to know that this whole medrash is brought in, the idea of the medrash saying that Israel is compared to piles of wheat, or wheat in general, is because this is something you should not say. Don't even think for a moment that it's only from the aspect of the head that the Jewish people are separate or supernal above the nations. Right? You could say, okay, the Jews are very smart, they have a lot of wisdom, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're inventors, and accountants. Because, okay, the name of God is called upon their heads. Maybe you would say, mistakenly, that it's only upon their heads, dafka specifically. But when it comes to the beten, when it comes to the stomach, no, everybody's the same. We eat the same, we have the same things in mind. Don't think like this. And continues his thought, what not to think, that everyone uses food in the same way. That all the usages of the body are the same. But no, guess what? There is something unique about the Jewish stomach. Okay? There's a holiness, not just in the head. Don't be mistaken and think it's just the Jewish head. As we say, Yiddish cup. No, even in the stomach there's holiness. And what did I say earlier when we started this class? That the Nazis, that Amalek, that Haman, they wanted to wipe us out physically. Guess what? There's something very physically different about us. Why? Ki einan oichlim kiim el pia Torah, al pia Torah. We eat according to the Torah. The Torah tells us what is forbidden to eat, how to eat, what kinds of mixtures of food we can or cannot eat. Kosher laws. Now there's a verse in Mishlei, that would be Proverbs 22:18. And it says like this: incline your ear and hearken to the words of the wise. This is actually Proverbs 17, also 18. Incline your ear and hearken to the words of the wise. and put your heart to my knowledge. For it is pleasant that you guard them in your stomach. You guard them in your innards. What are you guarding? You're guarding the Torah and God's knowledge. They will be established together on your lips. We're obviously talking about even the oral Torah, but we're talking about the Torah which would be on your lips. What we're trying to establish here is there is something unique about the stomach, that the Torah is not just in the head. The Torah is in the entire body, especially in the stomach. How pleasant it is that we guard it in our stomach. And also in Psalms, Tehillim 40, verse 8 and 9. Then I said, behold, I have come with the scroll of a book written for me, O God. I desire to do your will and to have your law within my innards. Okay? This idea of having the law and the will of God in our stomach. What is this all about? This is just to hit home the idea that the Torah is not just in the head, but it's in the goof, it's throughout the body, because you are what you eat. And then we see like this, continuing the thought, what not to say. Yisrael ein lehem yitaron ki imitzad harosh. Don't say that the only advantage the Jews have is the fact that they have a Yiddish cup, that they use their brains differently, that they're smarter. Don't say that. Why would you have said that? Because that's obviously the place where wisdom, the chachma, the wisdom is in the brain. As we do know that we are complimented by the nations for this. You can't deny it. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 6 through 8. And you shall keep them and do them. This is the mitzvot. For that is your wisdom and your understanding in the eyes of the peoples. Meaning keeping the Torah, learning the Torah, and keeping the mitzvahs. Who will hear all these statutes. And you know what they're going to say? It says the Goyim are going to say, only this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there? On and on and on. All the attributes of the Jewish people. So you see, from a certain sense, yes, it's true. There is wisdom and understanding. But guess what? The people would mistakenly say when it comes to eating and the body, it's all the same. We just follow our stomach just like all the other nations follow their stomach. But no, don't say that. But rather, their stomachs, the Jewish people's stomachs, are like piles of wheat within the stomach. Why? As we mentioned that other verse, we started with this idea of Song of Songs, chapter 7, verse 3. That this place, which is really the navel of the earth, and the navel means your stomach. That's where the navel is located. So not only when we go back and look at the verse, at the earth's very center, your Sanhedrin site is a crescent basin for ceaseless flowing teaching. This could talk about the different organs that we have in our stomach that filter different ideas and thoughts and counsel. Your national center, that now is the stomach, as the pasuk says, Bitnech Arenos Chitim. The national center is an indispensable heap of what? He translates it as nourishing knowledge. But it doesn't say that in the Hebrew. It says wheat. This is the heap of wheat. Knowledge and wheat are strongly connected. And then the next part it says hedged about with roses. So there's a little bit of play on words here. That how do we eat? We eat with hedges. We eat with fences. We don't just eat whatever we want and whenever we want and in any manner that we want. There are laws of how we eat, as we say in Hebrew, pisiag v'geder, through fences and restrictions. Asher gavlu rishonim, the earliest rabbis from Moses on down, shenim shalu l'shoshanim, these sages and righteous leaders of the Jewish people are compared to roses. It says hedged about with roses, that they added additional restrictions and warnings and limitations. Shoshan, listen to this word. Shoshanim is roses. Sheshonim halachos halichos olam. They taught these laws. They were the transmission of the Torah. They teach these laws as halichos olam, as an eternal path. That's why our Medrash mentions the betin, to add this idea that it's not just the head that is understood here, but the entire goof, the entire body is elevated whenever the census is taken, meaning that the Jewish people are raised above and supernal above the nations, as we mentioned in the verse in Deuteronomy chapter 26. Look at that verse up again. And I just wanted to conclude here to tell you, a Purim Sameach, we should elevate the physical world through our drinking and our eating, and by giving gifts to the poor and giving Mishloach Manot, presents to our friends, and the truth be told, to people who we may have had problems with through the years or recently, to make up with people so that we spread the love. Because not only do we intellectually or spiritually understand that we have to love every Jew, but we have to act on that and bring it to action in this world and send gifts. So I wish you all a Freilich Purim, and Ki Tisa is no coincidence that it falls out on the week that Purim does as well. All the best. Till the next time.
Shushan,